believe it was a legal interview question, which increases the chances that they're going to blame the company.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is not good. Yeah. Which, by the way, is a good reminder. Hey, folks, if you're a manager and you're interviewing, you ought to know what's legal and illegal and be cautious about that. And there are ways to be cautious and still tread on delicate ground, but you ought to know, because this will happen to people right in front of you, and you'll wonder why that candidate did so good until this one part, and then everything fell apart, and gee, I'd love to hire him, but didn't go well.
Yeah. If you believe the question is illegal, and then you ascribe some kind of ominous intent to the interviewer, you're putting up a barrier between you and the interviewer. And and that barrier, that thought in your head, that creates a barrier, and that kills, at least puts a real damper on the idea of building a relationship with the interviewer. And that's one of the things you're trying to do during the interview. You worked all this time to figure out what your questions are, to think about what the interviewer is going to ask you. You're thinking about what the needs of the interviewer are, so you can present yourself to the interviewer as an answer to their needs. And then you put up this barrier between you and her. That's not
good. Look, let's face it. You may also, right. You're essentially addressing the whole issue of intent, right? I mean, if you do that, you're going to kill it. If you assume ill intent, it's going to break down the interview. But look, you may be talking to a clumsy, poorly trained, well-meaning, and totally ethical manager. Most managers are egregiously poorly trained as interviewers. That's part of why HR does interviews, to protect managers, because training managers is so hard. Now, look, we're not trying to excuse the bad question, okay? Because there are those. They're rare, but they do happen, and we ought to know about those. But a little grace when you want the offer from a company ought to be in order. And here's something interesting. People tell me, well, I don't want to offer them grace if they're a discriminator. Well, that's the whole point. Maybe they're not a discriminator, and the grace allows you to believe that they are not discriminating against you. And maybe you'll find out more data to suggest that they're not, as opposed to drawing to a conclusion. But here's the funny thing. The candidate says, I don't want to give them any grace. Boy, that would be really bad if this person's discriminating against me. And so expect the manager, quid pro quo, to say, well, I'm not going to give them any grace if they make a mistake on any question, whether it's discriminatory or not. If they blow one of my questions, we're done. And the candidate goes, no, wait, interviews are hard. Man, I give me a little bit of slack, right? I want to make a mistake. I'm stressed out. I'm like, okay, where's the double standard there, right? Everybody wants grace when they're the interviewee, but the interviewee never seems to want to give grace to the interviewer. And the fact is, look, we're not apologizing for managers. Managers stink at interviewing. And what do we say at Manager Tools over and over and over again? The single most important thing managers do is hiring. If you hire well, folks, everything else gets easier. And that's why we talk about raising the bar high. And that's why we're creating the interview creation tool. Grace is a really, really good thing. Look, when we've discussed with managers why they want to ask a question that might fall into a gray area, it's not because they have some hatred or disagreement, or they have a bias, or they're overly opinionated. Usually, far more often, an employee in their past, somebody who worked for them, caused them problems in a certain area, and they don't know a better way to get the information they need. Okay? And they're clumsy, and maybe, in fact, in beyond gray into a black area, but they literally shoot themselves in the foot. Now, I have to tell you, I don't think that's a bad person. I think that's a person who may be misinformed. It may be a person who's doing something that's not effective, but I don't think that person intends necessarily to discriminate. A manager Wendy worked with was adamant that he should be able to ask women about childcare arrangements. When she told him, hey, there are legal implications there, not just for the company, but for him personally, he decided that perhaps he didn't want to ask the question. Then he said, kind of plaintively, he says, it's just, I had this woman work for me, and she was forever leaving work early to pick up the kids. She'd leave work undone. She'd leave customers hanging. She'd not tell me she'd left, so I couldn't pick it up.
Yeah. So he's just clumsy in his thinking. What he's really concerned about was the candidate's rigor in informing her manager on her whereabouts, right? Her conscientiousness and her dedication to serving customers, all those things. And I'm sure Wendy could come up with the question that would address those directly versus this idea of having kids, right?
Yeah, look, that's easy. When have you had the chance? When have you had to leave the office unexpectedly? And what steps did you take in the past to mitigate the effect on your team and your customers, right? and the candidate answered the question pretty well and got the job, right? It's not about childcare. It's about professional accomplishment of one's work, right? We're not discriminating against people with childcare. Look, it would be the same thing. I would tell that manager, it'd be the same thing if you had a guy who really liked to go skating and or surfing, and the light was best at the end of the day, and he wanted to leave at 3:30 every day. It's not a childcare issue. It's a getting the work done issue. Now, to be honest, your interviewer, folks, the person who's interviewing you, may not have someone to help her work through from a legal area to a legal one, right? To get out of that gray area or get out of that black area and to ask a question that's white, that's clear, that's pure. Think about what's being asked and what the manager's real concern could be, and then answer the question. And in fact, for many of you, I wouldn't even think about what the concern could be or wouldn't. I mean, I actually say, don't put a filter in there. Just say, answer the question. Now, look, there's another reason why the interviewer might ask a stupid question. He just might, or she just might be making small talk. Have you got a family is not necessarily a veiled comment about your commitment to work or what kind of problem your rugrats are going to cause for the company and this particular manager.
Right. If you were at a cocktail party and somebody asked you, hey, do you have a family? You would immediately think the person was getting into your commitment to work. It might have been a work party, right? But you wouldn't think they were doing that. And at the beginning of an interview, often to put you at ease, they're going to engage in some small talk. And these are the kind of questions people ask when they have small talk.
Yeah, I remember being at a party in Chicago a number of years ago. It was a client-sponsored party that a lot of the clients had essentially left, but there was a pretty good crowd at this public this place. We were at the Capitol Grill. And I ended up standing next to somebody who was in another division of the company that I've been working with. And we were waiting for someone to come back to have a discussion about this new venture. And I said, you don't work here in Chicago? He says, no, I'm in the Des Moines office. I said, oh, great. Do you like Des Moines? I said, I actually like Des Moines, big baseball town, good people. And he said, yeah, great place to raise kids. And I said, well, tell me about your kids. And there was a pause, and he said, well, I have them. And I thought, wow, he brought it up. I did what is normal. And he said something that clearly could do nothing but put an immediate damper on a conversation like, I don't want to talk about my kids. Now, I chalked it up to him being clumsy. But I have to say, even chalking it up to clumsy, there was no question he was saying, I'm not going to talk about my kids. Now, you have to respect that, but wow, the person who was standing there with us was like, wow, that guy just snubbed you. And it's really hard not to feel snubbed. And you try to make small talk to lighten things up, and whew, man, that's hard. So look, where are you from is not a question about your ethnic origin, but an attempt to find something to talk about. You know, do I need to make any special arrangements for you is probably not a comment about your disability, which may be visible, but a concern based on naivete about making you comfortable. Okay. So if you jump to a conclusion about a question, you're going to have that thought in your head that may cause you to misstep. And we want you to be successful in the interview. Remember, you can still say no. If you really truly believe that someone is engaged in something that you find unethical or borderline ethical, and you've got a number of options, okay, fine. Walk away. Assume positive intent, folks, because most of the time, most of us don't do things on purpose to hurt other people. We just don't.
Yeah, we just do it by accident.
Yeah. Well, yeah. High G's do it more than others.
There you go. Thanks, everyone. That's it. We'll see you next week. Have a great one. So long. Welcome to Career Tools. Today's show, answering illegal interview questions. Part 2. Here we go. If somebody asks you an illegal question, you think it's an illegal question, you've tried not to ascribe some kind of malicious intent to it.
Right. You don't even think about it.
You don't even think about it. And that kind of leads to the next point, which is if you've done all that, then answer the flippant question.
Yeah. Look, you don't even have to do all this thinking. Our recommendation to you is forget about illegal questions. Forget about them. Answer the question. Get the offer. Okay. Answer the question which is asked. No matter what the question is, folks, we don't care. Answer the question. And let me say it this way. If it is an illegal question and I suppose there's a manager out there who says, you know what, I'm going to ask an illegal question. He's never going to sue me. He's going to stumble. He's going to mess up the rest of the interview. And if you want to call their bluff, answer the question directly and specifically. That's how I always felt about it. And that's my secondary fallback position after. I want the offer. If it's a question that I may not know the answer, I may not understand why he could get away with asking it, I don't care. I'm going to answer it truthfully so that I can get past it, right? If you're asked if you're married, say yes if you are, and then tell them the age of your kids. If they ask about your pregnancy status, tell them what yours is. Now, look, yeah, that's a stupid question. Okay. It's wrong, right? It may be actionable, though I promise you folks, actioning these things is miserable. It's awful. But again, the point I made earlier about grace on both sides of the court, here's the thing. You want them to forgive you some of the stupid things, some of the stupid mistakes you make. So forgive them a little bit. Okay. So you answer the question. And I really like the guidance here. This is Wendy's guidance about if they ask if you're married, say yes, and then tell them the age of your kids. Because the age of the kids is another area that they're not supposed to get into, right? You can't discriminate based on someone's family status. But when you say, yeah, I'm married, I have 3 kids, you're saying, I'm acting as if your question was not illegal or discriminatory. There's a great bit in the movie, the Harrison Ford movie, I was going to say Patriot Games, but actually it may be Patriot Games. It's the one where he goes to South America. I'm about to say the Tom Clancy movie where he's a CIA guy's advisor to the president. And when one of the president's friends is implicated in a drug cartel operation, which is terrible for the president, they say that he's in the White House meeting and everybody's saying, well, we have to deny it, or what do we say, or how do we do it? And he says, and Jack Ryan says, Harrison Ford playing Jack Ryan says, no, you don't deny it. You admit it. You say, when people ask, was he your friend? Say, yes, he was a good friend. He's a good friend. Yeah, great friend. A great friend. Yeah, lifelong friend. And you're being so open about it that people are so stunned. You're acting as if it's not a problem and they're looking for drama and you're saying there is no drama. If they're asking you about family and they have ill intent and you say, oh yeah, I'm married, I have 3 kids. That's just you saying, this is a totally polite conversation. I'm denying that you would, in fact, do something illegal or a gray area. And I'm going to be pleasant and conversational, even if, in fact, there's a 1 in a billion chance that you're not being so. And the fact is, that will serve you brilliantly, because if you can do that, it comes across so naturally, it encourages friendly, polite conversation. Okay? Now, there's a strange thing about interviews. Recruiters have hundreds of stories. Every recruiter in the world has hundreds of stories about the downright weird answers candidates give to questions and the odd things they do. But here's the funny thing. Nobody ever confesses to giving a strange answer or being the one who opened the wrong door or tripped up the stairs or put their pipe in their pocket while it was lit and then discovered their coat pocket was on fire, or that said, I can answer interview questions through my headphones, right? My earbud headphones, right? So it doesn't make sense that no one cops to doing these stupid things, but recruiters say all the time, oh, you won't believe what this person did. So you might be the one who says something odd or trips over their words or pushes the flip chart, the easel over when giving a presentation. And if you are, you're going to want the interviewer to forgive you. So if he speaks without thinking, forgive him, please. And here's the thing. After you've directly answered the question, try and address the concern the manager may have, which is causing him to ask this question. If he asks, are you married? Say,